Well, it's a great pleasure to have you here at Enlightened, Niall, and of course to talk with you about a number of things. What I would like to raise, given that you have actually written on a number of things, including globalization, technology, the international equilibria that exist, that is actually now under threat. And I was wondering, how do you see the impact of technology in education? At some stage this morning at the conference, you said that networks, social networks, are actually the result of democracy. But then you also raise in the square and the tower that, of course, social networks are out of control. There's no authority, there's no regulation. So how do you see the impact of technology in education, and how far can networks and some other devices help teachers as successful as you to reach out to a wider audience or to your current students?
Well, Santiago, I've been thinking about this for quite a long time, in fact 20 years, because back in the 1990s, when I was a professor at Oxford, I started my first tech company, which was an educational company called Boxmind, and our vision was that we were going to get the best professors in the world to deliver their most brilliant lectures, and we would put this online, and this would be transformative. And I learned a couple of important lessons from that unsuccessful experience. The first was that it's quite hard to bring new technology to universities, especially universities that are hundreds of years old, because the default setting of a university like Oxford is, well, why would we need this? What we've been doing for the last 700 years is still working. And the other thing I learned is that it's really hard to start a technology company in Europe, because in fact, it's really in the United States that ideas like that first began to work. And the successful education technology companies, Udacity, for example, started in the US, even although its founder is a German, Sebastian Thrun. So I've kind of learnt the hard way that there is something that technology can do for education. But I've also come to the view that it is not an alternative. In other words, we're not going to replace universities with online networks, and we shouldn't try to do that. There are some things that work very well online. Khan Academy shows that.
Sure.
There are lots of terrific resources now that didn't exist when I was at high school or in university, and they're a wonderful contribution. But I don't think we're going to get rid of the traditional university, because there are things that you do in a classroom or you do on a campus that you really can't do on any kind of online network, and it's not worth trying.
This morning, the president of Telefónica was mentioning that some parents actually leave their children in the hands of Alexa, this AI device to monitor some of their works. I very much agree with you that professors cannot actually be replaced by robots. At the same time, our experience is that technology can actually enhance the whole learning process. It can actually adapt to the personality of participants, of students, given that you can assess their skills, their progress in knowledge, and of course you can reach out to a much wider audience. I realized that at the time you founded your company 20 years ago, it was probably different circumstances. You were at Oxford, now you are at Stanford, where the environment is actually much more challenging and innovative. So, and you're actually a Twitter user yourself.
I'm ashamed to admit it, but yes, I am. I'm not an Alexa user though.
Okay.
Alexa and all similar devices are prohibited in my household, because there is a limit to how much surveillance I'm prepared to put myself and my family under, and I think surveillance is the right term to use. The network platforms have been rapacious in harvesting data from users, and they've been unscrupulous in the ways that they've used the data. And I think not enough people have learnt that lesson, and the illustration of this is the speed with which people adopt devices like Alexa. The Internet of Things is a system of surveillance, and one should not forget that. And just because the surveillance is run by Facebook, Amazon or Google doesn't make it radically different from the surveillance in China that is gradually making totalitarianism perfect. So I'm a very, very wary user of the internet, and I'm very careful about what I reveal when I'm on Twitter. I rarely reveal my location. I'm not the kind of person who posts boastful pictures of his breakfast in Madrid. But what I think is that technology, as you say, can allow us to do things that weren't possible before. This was true before the internet, mind you. I started making television films really
very successful, by the way.
Well,
The Ascent of Money and
The Ascent of Money was an attempt to get financial history to a wider audience. So it's not as if we needed the internet for technology to assist us in education. But I think what really is striking to me is how quickly the advent of online search and online content have displaced libraries. That is a deeply troubling tendency, because people don't realize that a Google search does not give you results ranked in the way that a search of a library stack gives you results, because the algorithm does not sort things with your education in mind or with the rational ordering of content in mind. It's sorting them with commerce in mind and with tailoring results to suit what it knows about your revealed preferences. Not enough students and not enough academics realize this, nor do they, I think, discriminate well enough between the good and the bad content that is available online, because the bad content tends to be free. And there's a kind of law here, a bit like Gresham's law in the realm of money, that bad content drives out good content.
That's a very good point, and probably we should encourage our researchers to run their work at libraries and to use the classical methods of searching for pieces of information or references through traditional classical ways instead of searching on the web.
And any scholar needs to understand the difference between a library catalogue and its method of sorting information and Google's method of sorting information, because they are not the same thing. And you can be led very badly astray by the way the algorithms skew search results. That's very obvious on YouTube if you start looking for video content. By the way, you mentioned television, Santiago. Can I just point out that all my television, 30 hours worth of primetime documentary made for mostly British television, is available free of charge on YouTube. And I don't get a penny, and nor do the production companies, because apart from
you get popularity.
Well, I don't know who really cares about that. To me, it's kind of shocking how much the intellectual property rights of content producers have been violated by YouTube.
Can I ask you, do you believe in machine learning? Given that we were talking about Alexa, and this morning again, we were listening to different contributions, and everybody believes that machines can actually learn. And I was wondering, I mean, of course, probably there's still lots of time, no? But I'm very skeptical. You were actually mentioning how research many times is now conducted, and whether it might be biased, given that algorithms probably orientate most of the researchers in some given way, sometimes the bad research, as you were saying, no? And something can be applicable also to machine learning. I mean, they can actually learn in the worst possible way, no? As we are seeing in many of the cases.
Yeah, if general artificial intelligence is ever created, and we're not there yet, and is presented with the world as a problem, I'm sure if it absorbs the data on climate change, it'll draw the logical conclusion that humanity is the major problem that needs to be eradicated. So we need to be a little careful about what we call into being, and I actually am inclined to agree with Elon Musk on this. Look, I have a great deal of respect for the people working on AI in the more specific applications that we see, whether it's autonomous vehicles or just winning games of chess or Go. This is deeply impressive work, but let me tell you a story. I was recently at a conference in Aspen and had a conversation with a leading AI scientist who described how they had come up with a program that can write plausible essays that appear to be by a human, that pass the Turing test. And I asked him, if that's possible, then if I give you the database of all the documents I've gathered from my biography of Henry Kissinger, do you think the machine could teach itself to write a history book and save me all the trouble of doing it. And there is a conceivable scenario in which a really good AI program could read enough history books and read enough raw documentation to work out how history books get written and be intellectually more powerful as a computer than my brain and be able to write the biography of Henry Kissinger in a week. It'll take me at least 2 years to write that book, and that's on top of maybe 10 years of research. So I think there is a really interesting frontier here. It's moving in disturbing ways, but to be honest, if somebody can write the first draft of that book for me,
which
in a week,
I don't agree that's possible. But
well,
anyway, it's a
if
very
they
good
can write
biography.
the first
by the way.
draft, I'm in.
Maybe. Thanks so much, Niall, for sharing with us these very insightful thoughts. But anyway, we hope you come again very soon to enlighten it. So thank you.
Thank you, Santiago. It's been a
Thanks.
pleasure. It's been a real pleasure.
Likewise.